Hello.
Hi.
Kayla Lords.
John Brownstone.
Of Loving BDSM, where we help kinksters like you have happy, healthy power exchange relationships. We're back to answer another one of y'all's questions. This one gives me thoughts and feels. Submissive wants to be told what to do, and the dom can't, won't. Yep, that's our question. Let's get right into the question. I ask my dom, what do you need? He goes, you have eyes and live here too. Basically, stop asking and just do the things. I've learned from many YouTube videos and talking with him that he can't deal with the mental load. How do I still get my needs met of being told what to do and being submissive without adding to his mental load? Can I just start with, I'm not impressed when you, as a submissive, ask your partner who is the dom, hi, guide me, lead me, control me, tell me what to do. And the response is, well, you have eyes.
Yeah.
Just do what you see needs to be done.
Yeah.
What? I don't like that.
No, me either. Yeah, to a certain extent, when you've been with somebody long enough, I mean, you can kind of see certain things that I need.
Right.
After all this time. But it's not the norm for how we...
True. And a response like that to me, and I'm projecting here, I get that, but it sort of assumes that the only thing a submissive is going to do are domestic tasks that they can look around and see what needs to be done. When in fact, submission can also be, not for everybody, but can also be, hey, I as a dominant have needs and things I want you to take care of that you cannot obviously see. This is not about washing dishes and doing laundry and sweeping a floor. This is about what I personally as a dominant need. I'm going to tell you what that is because you can't just guess what that might be.
Right. It's just like been saying for years, dominants are not mind readers.
Right.
And nor are submissives.
Right, exactly.
They're, yes, there is a certain point where you can be intuitive on some things, but to be a mind reader, no.
Right. It sounds to me like what this dominant partner would like is proactive service and submission. They want their partner to just sort of not have to be told every single thing, every single moment of the day, or whatever that quantity of, asks and whatever might be. But you don't get proactive service just because one of you went, I'm the dom, and the other one went, I'm the sub, and ta-da, here we are. You actually have to build a foundation in order to get proactive service. You have to have the conversations about what are your expectations as a dominant, what do you want done, need done, where do you need help, what is your submissive willing and able to do, and that requires mental load at the front that then can, yes, reduce some of the mental load as you go. That does not mean that you never have to tell your submissive what they need to be doing.
Right. I mean, I read this, and I've read this now several times.
It's just spinning in your mind.
And it just spins in my mind. And, I'm going to say something here, and it may not be the popular opinion, but this sounds like a very lazy dom to me. All right? When dom says, do whatever you see needs to be done. That's like, don't bother me, don't.
Right. I just want you to be a maid, a caretaker for our house, our life.
Do what you feel needs to be done, but leave me out of it.
Yeah. I'm not impressed with that either.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So, okay, let's say this is a person who does have a lot going on and doesn't feel like they can take on the mental load, and maybe they're new and they're learning. Like, let's give benefit of the doubt that they're not a shitty person. They're a person in need of education.
Okay.
We'll try that route. What would you advise for dom or sub of how to navigate this to create the power exchange that fits both of their needs? If you think that's even possible.
I don't know. It depends on a lot of things. But, here's what I am going to say. If this is indeed a person who has carrying, at this moment, at any given moment in time, a heavy load, per se, all right? Something I learned years ago, and it has been invaluable to me throughout my life. You delegate. All right? When you are overwhelmed, you ask for help and you delegate. So, one way of helping to reduce this mental load, especially if you are a dominant, is to say, hey, baby girl, I've got a lot going on in my life right now. I could use some help, and these are the things you can do for me to help lighten my load.
Right. And then at that point, I would say the submissive might ask clarifying questions.
Sure.
Because ideally what is happening in a power exchange is the dom asks for help or says, hey, do these things. And then you as a submissive want to do them in the way the dom wants them to be done. Right. Like it's for the vast majority of y'all, it's about the power and control of, I want it done the way I want it done, but also I want you to be the one to do it. So you might have to ask clarifying questions of, okay, do you want it done like this? Is there anything I need to keep in mind? Your partner may say, no, if you can just get it done for me, I trust you. I will not micromanage you. Just make it happen. You do that to me all the time. You're like, make it so.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, I'll go get it done. Use my best judgment. But I'm doing what you want me to do, what you've told me to do, which from the outside looking in might not look like being told what to do because you've asked for help. You've delegated the tasks. It still requires some amount of mental effort from the dominant, though. There has to be the willingness to take 5 minutes in a day, in a week, whatever, to say, here are the things I need. Here's what I need you to know about them. I trust you to get it done. Come ask me if you have questions. I'm also going to give side eye to any dom who's like, I want you to do the thing, but I will not answer your questions if you need help. That's not helpful for any fucking body.
No.
That's a manipulative power trip. That's not big D dominant in my mind. But it still requires that effort. Now, it could be trying to give benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
And not be a total bitch about this.
All right, because I had a thought too. Go ahead.
It could be that this dominant assumes that dominance is micromanaging, that they have to be on top of everything you do all the time. It could be that that's a type of submission that you want and they're not able to handle that. So a couple things may need to happen. One, the dominant may need to understand that that does not have to be dominance. Two, you may have to decide, okay, if I want maybe my dom to micromanage me and to tell me to do all of the things, but that is not going to happen currently. What can I accept? How low can I go in terms of constantly being, whatever constantly means to you, air quote that, being told what to do? Okay, can I handle being given a set of tasks on a Monday to be done by Friday, in the morning to be done by the evening, whatever, to get what I need without that consistent back and forth of, here's what I want, what do you need? Here's what I want, what do you need?
Yeah. Now, here's another side to the coin, maybe. It could be that this dominant is not a good communicator.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a skill.
I mean, that is a skill.
You have to practice it.
And, unless you have been exercising certain muscles, and I know this was kind of a problem for me in the beginning as well, because it was not something in any of my past relationships that I ever really kind of had, where somebody asks you, what do you need?
And you just weren't used to
it. And you're not used to that, and what do I need?
Right, and then it feels like effort to think about, what do I need right now?
And one, not knowing what you need because unfamiliar territory.
Right.
And then being unable to communicate that.
Right, not having the skills yet to communicate.
Right. So, there could be a bit of that in play with this as well.
In my charitable view of this question, yes, I will absolutely admit that. Because while we want to, from a submissive perspective, think of our doms as all-knowing, as being in total power and control, being very clear on what they want and how they want you to do it, and they're not quite mind reader status, but close, where they just, it's where we do that thing we're not supposed to do. We put them on a pedestal, right?
Yeah.
Right? We should not do it. It never works out well, but it still happens. And the reality is that doms have to learn the skills of being a dominant. I don't care how inherent little d dominant their personality is. The skills of figuring out what you want, communicating it in a way that it is effective for both of you, having enough trust, and feeling safe enough to be vulnerable and open up. Doms have to open up and be vulnerable on some level,
Right.
just like a submissive does. It looks different. It's two sides of a slash, but it's the same effect. So if your dominant is not used to being able to just say, these are the things I need, or these are the things I want you to do, and have that reciprocated, that, like you said, that's a muscle that they're going to have to exercise to get
what
more
might
comfortable.
what might be helpful to this person, especially if they're open to learning and growing in and of themselves, look for munches. If you don't attend munches currently, look into that. Many areas have what they call dominant roundtables, which is a meeting of just dominants, and they kind of talk about their concerns and things going on in their lives as dominants. And it is a good way to learn different perspectives and grow.
And just so you know, if your community has a dom roundtable, they will always at some point have a submissive version of that.
Correct.
So the submissives can gather and have their conversations as well. And good communities will let switches pick which room they want to be in at any given moment. Right.
Now some areas, I know, like Orlando, the Woodshed, they have a dominant and submissive roundtable. During COVID, they went virtual with it. And since that is mostly now over, they do have them in person, but they still do the virtual aspect. So, that is another thing to look into if they're willing to, grow and learn at that point.
Right. And I think it comes down to what kind of dominant your partner is and wants to be, and how much effort they're willing to put in. Because if, like you said, this is a lazy dom who thinks they get to call themselves a dom, and you just look around and do what you assume needs to be done with no input from them, and they, air quote, don't want to take on the mental load that's required, then that's not, to me, a sustainable, healthy power exchange relationship. You might want to rethink what's happening. If, however, they have bought into stereotypes and tropes and cliches of what dominance is, and they think they find themselves overwhelmed by that and think, wait, I can't do that, I can't keep up with that, then what they need to do is relearn what dominance means, either through the community or through resources like books and podcasts and videos and however they like to learn, and realize that there are other ways to be a dominant that don't require a massive mental load. There's a lot more mental load in the beginning while you're learning each other and you're negotiating your relationship. But if your partner is comfortable with proactive, anticipatory submission from you, where you see a thing, you know what their expectations are, and you just do the thing, you can get there, but you don't get there on day one. You have to put in the work in the beginning, and as you go, some of that work is alleviated, where in the very beginning it might be every day you have to talk about it. Over some given amount of time, maybe you're only having to talk about it, once a week to check in with one another, or 5 minutes a day, and then your dom just kind of lets you go and do the thing. That's a little bit of how our power exchange currently works, because our lives are too busy for JB to be figuratively up my ass all the time. He also knows that I'm too busy for him to constantly be throwing new tasks at me.
At her,
So we set a baseline of, here are the tasks I expect you to get done in a day. These are the things I want you to do for me, baby girl. And I go, okay. And then I am left to get them done by the time they need to be done. And then, as needed, JB will come to me and go, hey, here's a thing I need you to do. And he is mindful of the fact that I'm very busy and I can be overwhelmed and I might not be able to do it right at that moment. But he knows that if he hands me the task and gives me a deadline of when it needs to be done, he can then stop thinking about it. I'll take over and I've got it.
Right.
If that appeals to both of you, you can get there, but you do not get there on day one. It takes time. And if communication is the issue, if figuring out your dom's like struggling with how to tell you what they want and need, I highly recommend a book called Tongue Tied.
Yes,
it's about
yes.
Communication in sex, kink, and relationships in general. I think there's one, maybe 2 chapters that focus on kink, but that's fine. The entire book is worth it.
Yeah.
You can get something from the entire book. We'll link to it in the places. It's called Tongue Tied by Stella Harris. Ebook, physical book. We own the physical book. And I think there's an audiobook now. So, however somebody likes to consume content.
Now,
they can do
one other quick suggestion here in this, and again, if they are not a good communicator, I know with Kayla, especially in the beginning, she had a lot of trouble using her words. Sometimes she still does, and I used to ask her, okay, you can't verbally ask me at this point, write it out.
Right.
Would he be better off writing some of this stuff out that
Right.
he thinks rather than asking him? Sometimes for some people that's a better way for them to communicate.
Yeah, and sometimes the communication just needs to be asynchronous. They go away and take time to think, to write or type, so they can edit themselves, so they can really think through it. They can go as slow as they need to. They don't
Right.
feel like they have the pressure of somebody looking at them, asking them a question, and then they give it to you, and then you go over it, read it, take that information in without maybe them even being in the room with you. And that is a valid way to communicate as well. I think over the long term, it is better to you don't have to get rid of that way of communicating, but reduce that in favor of more face-to-face conversation. But that can take a while.
Right.
Both in terms of skill, but also comfort level and, just getting used to it and feeling safe and like you can trust your partner. And the thing is the things we tell submissives about trust and vulnerability and honesty and integrity and comfort and feeling like you can do these things, that all can apply to DOMs. It just looks a little bit different because, we have this thing of the DOMs are supposed to be in charge and know what they want. Well, that doesn't mean they're not going to struggle with how to communicate that and share that and embrace that, assuming that they want to be the dominant partner.
Correct.
So in this case, it's definitely about thinking about who your partner is and how they handle your power exchange in general. If you've had these kinds of conversations with them and all they tell you is, I shouldn't have to tell you anything, I don't think that's a healthy power exchange that can last. However, if you haven't really had these in-depth conversations, or you can see that, maybe what they need is a different way to communicate, or they just need to know there's a different way, well then, pick one of these things we said and go down the path that feels right. Lola agrees, as usual. So hopefully that helps. What we want is for everybody who wants to be together to have happy, healthy power exchange relationships, but also sometimes it's a bad fit.
Yeah.
It's a bad fit. Hopefully this isn't a lazy Dom. Hopefully this is a Dom who just needs a new perspective and to realize there's new ways of doing things, and that you can have the power exchange that you want.
There you go.
Lola agrees.
Yep.
Okay, so if you've got any experience with being a Dom like this and having these thoughts about mental load, or being on the receiving end and how you handled it, please, please, please feel free to share in the comments below. We can all learn from one another. If you yourself have a question that you'd like us to answer in a future one of these, there's a link in the description box where you can submit your question. It comes to us as an email, and I just file them away and I just go through them as we need to make a new video. I think we're on like a 6 to 8 week delay. It could take at least that long to get the question answered. It's kind of cool. So just know we would love to have your question about whatever aspect of your kink life that you'd like our insight on. If you enjoy this, we love a thumbs up. If you like it enough to want to come back for more, please please consider subscribing.
And then go ahead and ring the notification bell to get updates and new content.
Sure. I'm just going to slide in here and say we are trying to reach the arbitrary goal of 10K. Nothing special happens. I like round numbers. Okay. I like round numbers, and I'd like 5 digits instead of 4. That's all it is. So if you've been watching and you enjoy this, but you haven't subscribed, please consider it. And also, if you're like, I'm totally, definitely subscribed, double check, because sometimes YouTube will jack it up and unsubscribe folks. It's weird. So just saying. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye.